talk is what use is a retina specialist on a cataract project? Just to get to the point, you know, I really have a point to make, and so I want to make the point right off before I even say anything, and that is I think there is a big use for retina specialists on cataract projects, and I think personally that every cataract project should have a retina specialist on them as long as they have a portable laser. The other point I wanted to make before I say anything else is I agree so much with Dr. Baye that I think the answer to solving world blindness is not so much volume as it is education. If you educate enough people, then world blindness could possibly really be dented and perhaps even destroyed. But it's a issue of looking for places where you can educate people, and in a way think in the sense of trying to replace yourself. Instead of going over and over to the same place, see if you can find an ophthalmologist there that you could improve their skills and actually get to the point where you no longer have to go back. So anyway, those are my 2 points. I'll go sit down now, but no, actually I'll do the rest of the talk. So most eye projects are set up for cataract surgery and perhaps pediatrics, but not retina, because retina has so much equipment and it's really hard to transport it for a 2-week project. Then the retina cases take a long time. You know, imagine you have 3 tables, everyone's doing their cataracts, 5 minutes to cataract, and then you have the retina guy who walks in and does an hour-and-a-half case. It would completely destroy the flow of the day. Then retina disease seen on 2-week projects is often old and chronic and not fixable. Many hereditary retinal diseases are incurable. Many U.S. retina specialists cannot efficiently perform cataract surgery. And retina specialists themselves are often demanding and cranky. So why bring them along? You know, why bring yourself trouble? So I kind of decided that I wasn't going to do any projects anymore when I went to Aguas Caliente in 1988, and this is me when I was actually skinny. And what ended up happening is I got a call from the medical director saying, hey, why don't you bring your Marshall Parks strabismus guide with you, because that's probably what you're going to be doing all week because we don't have any retina equipment. So I actually did a whole bunch of strabismus cases, you know, simple cases, and I was quite proud of myself by the end of the project that I'd straightened all these people. But I only did like a couple of scleral buckles because I brought a cryo unit, and I felt a little like I just hadn't been used to the maximum on that trip because of all this. And so this was the time when I did have an ophthalmology resident from Canada who worked with me and as a student. My conclusion was that maybe I would just be a teacher after that, because I've always liked teaching. And so I started going to Dr. Baye's hospital, also went to El Progreso, went to a bunch of places with just teaching in mind, because to kind of proliferate thoughts and understanding of retina. So this went on for about 15 years, where all I did was just do projects where I was involved in teaching. So then one day, Sam Amstutz, does anyone know Sam? Okay, well, Sam is one of these guys, it's impossible to say no to him. And so he called me up and said, well, why don't you go on this project? And I said, well, I don't do those anymore. And he said, well, it's to Azerbaijan. And I said, Azerbaijan, what? Never heard of the place. And he says, well, it's near the Caspian Sea. And when I was a kid, I loved maps. And I always wanted to visit the Caspian Sea for some reason. But it was under control by Russia, so I figured I would never get to see the Caspian Sea. So I thought, well, why not? And then at the same time, I spoke to a rep from Iridex, and the rep says, well, how about if I lend you a laser and you can take that along? And so this is how the idea of taking a laser on a project came to my mind. It was almost completely random, which is how God does things a lot of times. A lot of times it seems to me that God answers questions that I never asked in the first place. And it's only in retrospect that you realize Hey, that's the question I should have been asking all along. But so I met a young doctor, Layla, there, who, and she came to 2 projects in a row, taught her how to do PRP and focal. Eventually, she went on to the Santana Center to finish residency and also do a retina fellowship. And so, and what eventually ended up happening was Sam Amstutz quit going, and I just kept going for the next 10 years or so, and we were able to set up an OR in this Baku clinic with an Accurus vitrector, and that was the first time they were able to do vitrectomy in Azerbaijan. So a lot happened after that 2-week trip. So I decided, well, maybe I shouldn't have been so judgmental about the Aguas Calientes trip, because here a lot of things God did was good out of this whole thing. So this is the scary part of the talk. And it's the reason why I think that portable lasers need to go on all the projects is information about diabetes. And it's unbelievable at this point. There's more than 10% of young people in the U.S. have diabetes. More than 25% of people over 65 have diabetes. I don't know if you all knew that. I didn't really know it was that high. So 1 in 4 older people have diabetes. And in the last couple of decades, the incidence of diabetes has been increasing in the U.S. by 3% per year. No one really knows why exactly. It's diet, partly, but it's a whole bunch of other things which I don't have time to cover it. But the projection is from 2011 to 2025 that we're going to double the population of diabetics in the United States. Imagine if you woke up 10 years later and there were actually the incidence of cataract was twice as rapid in its formation as it is now. It's just it's an epidemic. And it's not just in the U.S. China and India will have double the diabetics in that same time period. There's a good review. It's kind of old. It's 2004. But if you want to have a good review of all that, you could read the Diabetic Care article. And there's also an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in children. It's been especially reported on from Japan. And it's not a benign type of diabetes. You know, there was a group out of Canada that was followed for 51 patients till they became adults. And kids that got type 2 diabetes when they were a little kid, by the time 18 to 33 years rolled around, 9% were dead. I mean, that's young. 6% on dialysis, 1 amputation, 1 blind. So we're in the midst of an epidemic of diabetes, and we need to do everything that we know how to do to solve this issue. So, what use is a retina specialist? Well, bring a laser. Lasers are useful at a much earlier stage of the disease. And I once met a retina specialist who said that the retina doctor's job is to put the retina back on. It doesn't matter if the patient sees anything. That's what they actually said. They just need to make the retina flat. Well, I completely disagreed with that person. And I think even in retina specialty, you want to get people back to a normal life. You want to get them back to work. And because diabetes occurs at such an early age in many people, it's imperative that they be caught early. And so on a project, when someone has lost very little vision, is really kind of a perfect time to treat these people. And one idea I came up with is that years ago, almost every retina specialist in the United States bought a diode laser. And so there's a lot of low mileage diode lasers out there, and there's companies where you can buy a refurbished diode laser. And they weigh less than 20 pounds. Because what you want to do is catch people that are early like this. When they get to this stage where they have all this fibrosis along the inferotemporal arcade, they have vitreous blood. Even vitrectomy is going to have a hard time getting back normal vision so they can go back to work. So why bring a retina specialist? Primary reason, so you can treat diabetics at an early stage and hopefully keep them gainfully employed. So, I went on this project with MMI Canada in January. Barbara is back there listening. And so Barbara made Station 14, which was the Retina department. And so this is my wife, Nancy. This is the interpreter, Becky. And then Clara was someone from the Amazon who was a primary care doctor that wanted to learn how to do ophthalmoscopy. So she kind of shadowed me for the 2 weeks. So I did several things. We evaluated all diabetics that came on the trip that had diabetes for more than 10 years, looking, of course, for diabetic retinopathy. Evaluated other retinal diseases. Evaluated all the patients that had unexplained vision loss, because there's a certain small percentage of patients that just no one knows what's going on. And what I found was as I had a little more time, and I could dilate them, really carefully look at the fundus, and most of the time come up with the answer. So I did laser therapy right on the spot, and then we prayed for a lot of patients. Becky, the interpreter, was super at Spanish, but she also really had a heart for prayer. So we had time, more than many of the other people on the project, to take time, talk to the patients, and pray for them. So this is my diode laser. You can see it back here. So it's not a very large thing. This shows me lasering someone. And the original case that the Iridex company put it out is pretty good, but it's not super sturdy. So I got a Pelican case, where this case, for all of you that haven't seen these before, they come loaded with foam, and then you just cut holes in there so that you can put whatever your delicate equipment is inside. Even has wheels on it so that you don't have to carry the darn thing around, and you can just throw it in the normal luggage. So I brought other supplies. I brought supplies for retrobulbar block because I was doing the entire PRP in one session. So I brought all the stuff I needed for that. I was also worried about cystoid macular edema post-PRP. So I brought some dexamethasone to inject subconjunctivally, brought Pred Forte. So everybody got subconj dexamethasone, which doesn't last very long, and then they used a bottle of Pred Forte 4 times a day. I would have liked to take Avastin. However, you cannot guarantee the refrigeration of this complex molecule, and so I was just concerned that it would fall apart and just be useless. So this shows laser therapy. I didn't have a ability to photograph on the trip, but I did focal, I did PRPs. And it's my feeling with laser is that if you can find a willing student who's already an ophthalmologist in the city that you're working in, and if they want to learn laser, I think it would be of great value to teach them. It takes more time, slows down your volume, but if you can end up a 2-week trip and you've taught someone how to do PRP and how to screen diabetics, that then maybe you can leave one of these lasers behind and just go from city to city and bring laser therapy for diabetics to the community. So we've also evaluated other retinal diseases. We were taking care of the Wayuu Indians, which are a group of 200,000 Indians, and they had crazy stuff. They had these widespread wipeout of the choroid in the periphery and in the macula. Strange, I saw a case that it was Tay-Sachs disease. It was some sort of storage problem where they had this pseudo cherry red spot. And the poor little baby was only 2 years old, was already limp and dying. But I think it was because of the small population group that was intermarrying. Then I had this one lady, no one could figure out what was going on. I looked inside, she had myopic degeneration. And what it turned out is that she could only see like 3 inches from her face. So even the near card she couldn't read. So she went and got glasses. She was like a -18. And got glasses for the first time in her life at age 50. Can you imagine? Going around and your entire world is 3 inches away. So, and my favorite part was praying for people and just talking with them because that's the ministry of passing things on. And just as a final note in terms of education, Jesus, remember how many people Jesus trained? 12, right? And then there was one that left. But those 11 people went on to train other people, maybe 11 or 12 each. That was how Christianity started and spread throughout the world. So I think if we take the model of Jesus in terms of how to train, that education will become a little more in the front of our minds when we're doing projects and doing things for the Lord. Thank you very much.